Hello, my fellow monks, and welcome back to another episode of Swingin' Reviews, the show where I grab a random album off the vine and I tell you how I feel about it. The Foo Fighters are great, aren't they? They're one of my favorite modern bands. They're still going strong after nearly 3 decades. Starting out as a solo project by drummer aficionado Dave Grohl, the band slowly gained popularity in the late 90s to early 2000s, with classic albums such as The Color and the Shape and One by One. And even if the band's later output wasn't as special, I'd say overall the Foos have had no bad albums. And after the tragic loss of Taylor Hawkins in 2022, we weren't sure if the Foo Fighters would ever play again. Thankfully, our worries were put to rest when the band not only announced Josh Freese as Taylor's replacement, but also released the first single, Rescued, off of their new album, But Here We Are. And not only is that the name of the album, but it's also the band's mission statement going forward. If I could describe this album in one word, bittersweet is what comes to mind, and you'll see what I mean. But before we get into the music, you guys know what time it is. Cover art theater! First things first, if you're not looking with a keen eye, you'd think this is a lesser version of the Beatles' White Album. At least that's what Spotify would leave you to believe. Holding the actual vinyl though, the flowing wave-like lines really pop. And am I the only one that's reminded of the old school PS3 boot-up screen that would take you to the old XMB dashboard? Anyone else remember that? No? Just me? Anyway, despite my initial criticisms, I do feel the cover fits the tone of this record. And flipping the jacket over, you'll notice there's a message stating for Virginia and Taylor. Virginia being Dave Grohl's mother, who sadly passed away around the same time as Taylor. She was also a huge influence on the writing and tone of the album. And since I am the Rush guy, if I was to compare this to a Rush album, this would no doubt be their Vapor Trails. Right from the opening track, the aforementioned Rescued, it kicks the doors down with a powerful alt-rock riff and pounding drums. I love the way Dave sings, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Is this happening now?" It sounds like it's being shouted from the mountaintops. In the chorus, "We're all free to some degree to dance under the light. I'm just waiting to be rescued." Then he takes that same line and twists it into "We're just waiting to be rescued." A simple change, no doubt, but a meaningful one. I mean, who hasn't been waiting to be rescued at one point or another? You can tell Dave just wants to be rescued from all the tragedy he experienced in the last year. Not to mention, this isn't the first time this has happened to Dave. The feeling continues on the next track, Under You, and this would be my favorite track on the whole album if it wasn't beat up by another one we'll get to very shortly. The riff on here is just so playful and innocent. In fact, these first 2 songs sound like throwbacks to the early days of the Foos. I hear a lot of the DNA from the debut album and The Color and the Shape, with just a sprinkle of There's Nothing Left to Lose in for good measure. This might be the most ear candy song on the record, and it gets stuck in your head all day. There are times that I need someone. There are times I feel like no one. Sometimes I just don't know what to do. Again, can't we all relate to that? We slow the momentum down just a little bit with the ominous hearing voices. And this is the point where we've officially entered the goosebump zone. The opening chord is reminiscent to the Alex Lifeson chord. And once you hear it, you won't unhear it. Again, David just painting a picture with the lyrics. I've been hearing voices. None of them are you. The way this track closes with just Dave and that acoustic guitar, "Speak to me, my love. Speak to me, my love," is just perfect. And now we go from spooky to uplifting with the title track. Again, the pounding drums and that jackhammer or maybe a drill sound in the opening brings us back to a more classic Foo Fighters sound. Dave's screams on the chorus are vicious. In some of his most metal AF moments, and you can really feel that Dave and the band were able to close the door on the previous era without sacrificing the punch and the bite from the early records. My favorite part is the last 30 seconds, when the band just jams, and again, very reminiscent of their earlier days. The Glass is another song where you can correlate the lyrics to the themes of loss and grief. I found a vision of love, and just like that, I was left to live without it, waiting for the storm to pass, waiting on this side of glass. And again, just like Rescued, we get a lyric change on the second verse. Instead of, I was left to live without it, Dave changes it to, I was left to live without him, which could only be about one of two people. Out of all the tracks on this record, this is probably the most moody and atmospheric, maybe tied up there with Hearing Voices. Just love how beautiful the guitar chords are, but also have this melancholic feeling, and you can really feel yourself behind the glass, and that loved one that you can see, but you can't feel them because they're behind said glass. It's just beautiful. And it also helps that there's a killer guitar solo toward the end of the track that really ties everything together. Halfway through, we get the shortest song on the album, Nothing at All. And remember when I said that Under You was so close to being my favorite track, but got beat out by another one? This is that song. Everything I love about the Foo Fighters is packed into this track. And it's the shortest on the album, clocking in at just under 3.5 minutes. It's a simple but catchy groove that again will get stuck in your head for the rest of the day. That's really impressive when making an album like this, keeping the listener engaged while also getting your point, or in this case, pain, across. If you're listening on vinyl, this is the point where you flip the record over to side B. Show Me How is another ominous cut that features vocals from Violet Grohl. The two voices really complementing each other here over this haunting instrumental. I feel like this song is directed towards Virginia, specifically with the lines, I'll take care of everything from now on. And the fact that Violet is on this track brings everything together in a family affair. She even gets to send the track off with a lead vocal spot, repeating the line, I'll take care of everything. It's almost as if through song, the message is getting passed down to the next generation. Violet, now being an adult, she's living her own life as a musician and songwriter, and judging from her performance at the Taylor Hawkins tribute show, she has a bright future ahead of her. Beyond Me is another song dealing with loss. Everything we love must grow old, or so I'm told. You must release what you hold dear, or so I fear. But it's beyond me, forever young and free. Again, another killer and passionate solo that just tugs on your heartstrings. A little Let It Be-ish. Out of all the songs on this album, this one took the longest to grow on me. I always liked it to a certain degree, and even if it's still my least favorite on the record, I can totally sympathize with the message. So far, we're 9 tracks in, and the album hasn't lost any steam. I feel like in today's world, albums are either too long or are filled with, well, filler. In fact, the 2 tracks that close out the record are the most powerful on the album. Let's start with the 10-minute long The Teacher. You heard me, 10 minutes. Are the Foo Fighters a prog band now? Step aside, Pink Floyd. Move over, Genesis. Out of the way, yes, because Dave Grohl is the new king of prog. All joking aside, this song doesn't feel its length. It's another one that starts off with haunting vocals. Who's at the door now? The rhythm quickly builds as the line, hey kid, what's the plan for tomorrow? And where will I wake up? Are repeated multiple times until the track fades out, for the first time with Dave shouting, wake up, over and over again, until the track explodes with lots of distorted guitar. Halfway through, the track slows down and we get an absolutely beautiful guitar melody that again will get stuck in your head all day. After Who's at the Door Now is sung twice, we get to my favorite part of the song. You showed me how to breathe, but never showed me how to say goodbye. Might be my favorite lyric on the entire album. I could see this as being about Virginia, as well as the line, try and make good with the air that's left, counting every minute, living breath by breath. With all the loss and suffering Dave has been through in his life, I see these lines as him taking the high road, and it's just living life one day at a time, trying to appreciate the people he still has left. That sick guitar melody plays again, Then we get one final burst of energy to remind you this is still a Foo Fighters song. Finally, when the song climaxes, all that's left are faint goodbyes, which segues perfectly into our final stop on this emotional roller coaster, Rest. The opening acoustic guitar and the vocal effect that is applied to Dave's vocals sound extremely familiar. Yup, if you couldn't already tell, this song is Foo Fighters' Something in the Way. If you listen closely, you can hear a lot of similarities. Instead of Kurt's more abstract lyrics, Dave's approaching this song in more of a retrospective manner. If any one song was about Taylor, this one is the most obvious. Rest. You can rest now. You will be safe now. Love and trust. Life is just a game of luck. All this time escaping us until our time is through. That verse alone, man. When the track ends, you feel a certain catharsis. You enjoy what you listen to, but you also feel like you've grown with Dave and were a part of his journey of grief through every song. And I believe that's what makes this album special in the overall discography. No other Foo Fighters record is this emotional, this soul-bearing. You can feel it seeping through every note and every lyric on the page, even if you can't read them most of the time. While I'll always have affection for the earlier albums, they don't have the same emotional potency that this record has. And the more I listen, the more I feel. And my hope is that it'll have the same impact on you that it's had on me. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of the new Foo Fighters record, but here we are. This is definitely an album of the year contender for me. It's up there with the new Queens of the Stone Age album. If you guys want to see a review on that, don't forget to hit like on the video. Subscribe to the channel for more swinging content. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload a new video to the channel. And don't forget to listen to Rush. And for all my fellow monks out there, make sure to keep meditating with vinyl.